good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you're at. My name is Eleni Summershield. I see that now we are live and streaming on Facebook. I am the Chief Operating Officer here at Wise Agent, and I have with me one of my dear friends, Nikki Beauchamp and Hudson. Where'd Hudson go? I thought he was going to come up and say hi.
Hudson will come
There he
and
is.
say hello.
Like we have usually it's an owl would be our mascot, but then Hudson is like our second mascot.
Yes, and he's definitely officially my
Yes.
mascot.
Yes.
I joke that he is the chief attention officer
Yes.
of my business.
Love it. Okay, awesome. Well, I'm happy that you all joined us today. Nikki and I are going to be talking about unlocking opportunities and a deep dive into segmenting, your CRM, your contacts in your CRM. So when you guys have a question, feel free to ask that in the chat or in the Q&A section. But for right now, I would love, I love all the love that everyone's showing Hudson, for you guys to just, if you wouldn't mind posting what city, state, brokerage, and how many years you've been in the business. I always love seeing where everyone's coming in from. So I'm here in Fountain Hills, Arizona, which is right outside of Scottsdale, and Nikki is in the great city of New York.
I am in the Big Apple.
Yes. So we were just hanging out last week together when I was in New York, and we were talking about today and what we were going to talk about. We kind of talked about it for a brief second.
We kind of talk about it. I mean, I think that one of the things about our conversations is that there's always at random points in time talking about different things that I am in the middle of. And I will absolutely send you questions and say, hey, how do I do this?
Yes.
And you will say A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Or you'll say call and the team will help you figure it out.
Yeah. No, I always love, anyone that reaches out to me and asks for help, I'm always happy to help. And so anytime I might say, hey, my team can do this because it's a little bit more in depth, but I'm always willing to help out, and especially friends. So we've got a lot of people that are joining us from all over. So welcome. So Nikki, I think, with talking about segmenting your audience and your CRM, I mean, this is like one of my favorite topics because I think it is something that is so crucial and critical to your business, because you should not, if you guys are out there right now and you're like, oh, I'm going to type up this message and I'm just going to select all my contacts and send them this one thing. I mean, I think it's okay to do maybe every now and again for a specific thing, but most likely you should not be doing that. Like most of the time you should be doing select all and send to everybody.
I can tell you that for the first time in maybe 10 years, I sent the same message to everyone.
Yeah.
And that was just recently when I switched companies.
Yeah.
Where everybody got the same message. Right. Other than that, I feel that the effectiveness of your messaging and your open rate and your engagement is directly tied into how granular and specific you are about how you organize your database, and then in turn, how you craft the message for specific segments of the database.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, there's not, like, it's not a one size fits all. Like your relationships with everyone are slightly different. I mean, even if you think about your like own personal life, I mean, just in generally
1000%.
Right? You have like, okay, I can talk about this general topic here. And then, and then we have like our little breakout sessions with different friend groups and whatnot. That's the term. Groups, right?
It's a breakout session is the perfect way of thinking about it. So if you had, let's say you have 4 basic buckets. Let's say you have buyer, seller, and I'm in New York City, so I also work with landlords and tenants. So I have landlord and tenant. But then you might break that down even further, where sometimes people who are first-time buyers, people who are sort of move-up buyers, people who are luxury sellers. And I'm a little sort of OCD about my organizing and tagging. And also tags can be, you can have multiple categories for the same contact. Because if you, as you are progressing through your career, I have a client who 22 years ago, 22, 23 years ago, was originally a tenant. Then they bought something. Then they became a buyer. Then they bought something else and they rented the apartment that they previously bought.
Yeah.
So now this person in my list is tagged as a tenant, a buyer, a seller, an investor and a landlord. And it also helps me see how the relationships evolve over time. And I do that with everyone. Again, I'm a little bit sort of very highly specific, but it also means that if I have an investment opportunity that comes across my desk, I can go into my database, say, who are the investors? And I can see the list. And if I know that some of them like buying an individual condo unit, or maybe there's a great place in Arizona that they want to buy, whatever it is, because it's so granular, I can then say, okay, this message about this property is going to these 15 or 20 people.
Yeah.
And it's highly, highly targeted.
Yeah. And I think that is the key, is like moving people around. So they go from like they were a tenant at one point and now they've become a buyer. So they're removed from that one audience. And now you're like, okay, well, that's not like, they're no longer a tenant. They are now a landlord and an owner, they
But
have
I think
multiple things.
I think what's also really interesting here, because you can have your categories, and then you can have your tags, and then you can have your audiences. And so, but all of these things really help you to understand the customer journey, your client's journey with you, but also the best thing to send to them. And not just, taking a step back from the clients, think about your referral partners. So I have some very specific referral groups that I am a part of. So that group of like 20 people has one specific tag and one specific audience. But then I may have people through either my Sotheby's connections or my previous, E&V connections, where I can then categorize based on what our connection is, when we met. Like if Eleni and I had met for the first time in Inman last week, her tag, her entry in my address and my contacts in my CRM, I still say, sometimes I flip and I say Rolodex because I'm old enough to remember when I had a Rolodex on my desk. But anyway, it would say, it would have Wise Agent. It would say that you're a technology provider, but then I would also know that we met at Inman Connect.
Yeah.
And I would specifically tag it with the date and the category. So that way I know, oh, here are all the people that I met at Inman Connect last week, or here are all the people I met when I was doing a continuing ed class at my association. All of those things are super helpful. And it's so much easier to do now than, when I had 16 things scribbled on an index card.
Right. Well, so I've come full circle, because I used to, as a kid, one of my favorite things to play with was Office, and the Rolodex was my favorite thing because it spin that thing around. And so I've kind of come full circle with that. But I want to share my screen because I think this is a really, this is a good way to demonstrate it. Just like even your example of like saying even like an example of how like about last week, if we had met last week, what would happen? So a couple of things here I want to show, and that would be, so I'm sharing my screen here and I'm just going to the contact list and going down to the gear here to manage my sources. So if we met at a conference, I would say, and the conference name is Inman, and Inman has a lot of different, now they've got 4 different conferences happening throughout the year. So I would just have Inman as like the name, Inman, or maybe Inman Connect to be a little bit more specific. So that would be my source. And then I would go ahead and I would, I'm just going to say, I'm going to add Nikki, and I'm not going to write everything out. I'm just going to put all of that, just that in there. And so now in here, I don't I could just put that the source and the source was Inman Connect. I don't necessarily have to put the date in because the date added, and let's say I did this like while I was there in New York last week.
Right.
Right here. So now I can go back and say like, because this isn't editable. So I would say like, ooh, Inman, okay, it must have been Inman, the one that happened in January in New York. And I could put in here like, met in NYC and, do all these things. I would put in my notes like we met because her dog Hudson was
I'm
right.
laughing.
And
I'm
so
laughing
now
because this is like the story of my life now. People all talk about the dog and nobody,
Did you?
but but that's really a key thing because like I am also at a point in life where I forget names.
Mm-hmm.
I might not remember a name, but I might remember a place or how we met or where we met or why we met.
Right.
So by all of these little categories, it's almost like me, taking a business card and just, scribbling on it. Or back when we had, the physical address books, having the little tabs so that I could remember things.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, that's what the CRM is there for, is for you to not have to be so overwhelmed with every little detail, where I could put all of the things in here. So now I can put in here, she's a realtor, and I don't know how I do not have that category in here, but then I can put in here, I don't know, dogs or whatever it is, right? So I can come in here and I can put all of these things all in one space where it doesn't have to be where I could come in here and even put like Hudson. Oops. So I can put all the things in
there's a
here.
Q&A about what is the difference between a source and a category, which I think is a really great question.
Yeah, so the source is like how you actually acquired, and I hate saying it as acquiring a lead, but if you were talking about leads and it would be about how you came to meet this person. How did you come to connect with this person? How did they get added into your CRM? So a lot of times it could be like for Inman Connect, it would be a manual addition, but had I been purchasing maybe leads from a portal, right? So of any one of the portals, I would be able to put in here like, so now I'm getting leads from one of the portals. So that would be my lead source, Zillow, realtor.com, homes.com, whatever, right? It would all be in here. And then I would be able to say, now automatically set that up. So I would come in here and find whichever portal, and I would just say, so this is what I have to do in order to connect it. And so then I would follow the steps to connect my portal to Wise Agent. And then all of those leads are going to absolutely be coming over, on their own automatically. And that automatic add is what helps you save your time and your money and, those precious resources that we just don't have an abundance of. Right. So I would then be able to come in here and say, okay, any leads that are coming in from Zillow, homes.com, realtor.com, I would select that source. Then I would categorize it and say like, okay, if the leads are coming in from one of those portals, they're probably a buyer. So then I can automatically just tag it as a buyer and then say, well, I have a newsletter that I write every month and I want to make sure that this buyer is getting that or this lead is getting that. So then I would put them in the category called monthly newsletter. And let's say I wanted to just say, add some other random category, whatever it is that you want, to put in here. So I'm just going to say portal, and I can just add that in as a category now. So you can add your own categories on the fly in here if you don't see one that you already have listed. And then that is what that automation of the categorization with the lead source is where it comes into play. And now you can do that by source, where then, like this would be maybe for, one of the portals, but then I can also do it from like my website or whatever.
Right. I was going to ask, what about from a website or a landing page that could also be
That
the
would be your
source?
source. Yeah. So anything that's a form online, right? It would be any online form that you would be able to get a notification, like an email notification that a new contact has filled out that form, could automatically be added into Wise Agent. So it doesn't matter if it's from one of the portals, if it's from your website. And let's say you're like, oh, well, I have a custom WordPress website. My brother is a developer or my sister's a developer and she created it for me. That's cool. We have a WordPress plugin. You could use the plugin, or if they just want to send the leads into Wise Agent, you would have this. Don't use this one because this is for this particular account. You have an email address that's assigned to your account that you would be able to copy to get those notifications going here. So then you could use the lead rules. And then it could also be if you're running ads. So if you're running Facebook ads, we have a direct integration with Facebook. So I can come in here and say, whatever that Facebook ad is, and this is where I want to kind of stop and just put the caveat in. The Facebook ad has to be either a lead form ad. It has to have a form. If it doesn't have a form, it's not going to come in because Facebook doesn't have any way of collecting likes and comments. That doesn't happen. So it has to be a
Right.
digital ad that has a form. So that's how that would work. And it could even be a Facebook post that you have a landing page. That you just post something from one of our landing pages and you say, I want to create this lead magnet on, hey, if you're looking to buy, these are the 5 steps that you want to avoid, I think is what it says, or whatever it is. Here's your first time home buyer's tip, or whatever the
Right.
lead magnet is. You could take this and you could just edit it and do all the things. And then you can say, okay, well, I'm going to share this across to Facebook. And with a click of a button, it will post on Facebook. You
Right.
can't.
And then anybody who fills that out then is automatically categorized in your CRM with that source. But
Yeah.
someone is asking for the difference between tags and audiences.
Oh, so that's an interchangeable. So categories, we call them categories. So if I go back into, because I believe I'm still sharing my screen, yeah. If I go back to the
Yes.
contact list and go to this gear, you'll see where it says manage categories. So I use this interchangeably: tags, categories, groups, buckets, audience, whatever you want, that classification, whatever term you want to use, we call it categories in here. So this is where you would put all of those categories to be able to segment
Right.
your
To be able to segment and
audience.
then target the
Yeah.
message that you're sending out.
Yeah.
I
So you
mean,
can, yeah, go ahead.
no, I mean, it's, I think that the idea of categorizing feels really overwhelming when you already have everything sort of in in your CRM, and it feels like it'll be too overwhelming to do. But I know that in Wise Agent, there's a way to sort of bulk categorize
Yeah.
people. So it seems overwhelming, but it will make the effectiveness of the message that you're delivering so much better. Your open rates will be better. You will have fewer people. I think it's been my experience. I very rarely have unsubscribes because what I am sending is very specific to that segment that I am sending it to.
Well, and that's like the essence of this message right there, is that the purpose for segmenting your audience and the categorizing of your clients and potential clients in your CRM is for that exact reason, is that you want to make sure that you're sending the right message to the right person. So then they're actually going to be responding to it. They're actually going to be reading it. And then that's what gets you. I mean, Nikki, you have a great
And
open rate
then
and success rate
and then also and then also if you have things so granularly categorized, it can then become easier to set up automations and reminders that are specific to that group. So, like one of my things is that if someone is an active buyer, I want to be in regular communication with them. And so I will set up reminders that tell me every X number of days. If I'm not already in contact with them, I kind of need to sort of stop and pop in and check in. So if I didn't have that, I would be looking at my database going, oh my God, who am I supposed to talk to, when, where, and how, versus getting an email reminder that tells me, here are the 5 buyers on your 5 buyers that you have not communicated with in the last 14 days. This is a hypothetical. And then that can prompt me to send something very targeted, or maybe I can send them some infographics about the market and what they're looking for.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really, I mean, that's a huge thing, is to be able to quickly glance at your database and see who have I not been, who have I fallen out of touch with? And that's why on our contact list, you even see like your last contact date, is because then you're like, oh, okay. And if you sort by that, right, where you can see the people that you talked to last up top, and you're like, ooh, I just go down 5 people, and then that was the last person, like that 6th person I haven't talked to in like 7 months. You're like, ugh, I gotta get back on the phone or text or email or do something, because it's really important to be getting, keeping in touch with people. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be calling Nikki saying, hey, Nikki, so are you looking to buy or sell today? Oh, okay. No, not now. All right. I'll call you in 6 months. Hey, Nikki, are you looking to buy or sell today? Like, that's not a really good strategy.
No. And also, one of the things that I find the most effective is literally to ask people. Ask them, how often do they want to hear from you? What do they want to hear? I have some people who love market data. Some people who love market data so much that they're happy to hear about the market from me every week, which is kind of insane, but that's a different
Yeah.
conversation. Some people will say, I would love to know quarterly. And so I can make note and sort of tag, okay, these are the people who should get a quarterly update. Some people only really want to hear once a year, and that's fine. Or some people will say, I don't want to hear anything. I just want to hear, once a year for you to tell me what the market is doing and how my property has hopefully appreciated 99% of the time, or things that are going on. And I think that, that is really the key. I just ask people. And I make a habit of every year, as I look and clean up my database, every year I ask people, I say, oh, I just want to make sure that you are still interested in hearing from me. This is what you've told me you're interested in the past. Let me know if there's anything else that you're interested in, so that way I can really target what I send to them.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, is that people don't like, people want to hear the message that they want to hear. They don't want, like, it can't just be, I mean, I'm totally guilty of like random thoughts, right? That just like kind of, but that's like when I'm talking to my friends and my family, I can have random thoughts like that. But nobody wants to read your emails about random thoughts that you have that have nothing to do with them, right? So like, for the people that have registered for this webinar, right? How random would it be if everyone that registered for this webinar that we're talking about CRM segmentation got an email from me saying, hey, let's talk about gardening, and like some off-topic thing. You'd be like, where did that come from? Like, I'm not interested in gardening. Why are you sending me this message? This has nothing to do with me. Maybe a few of you are like, ooh, I want to know about gardening, but a good majority of you probably not so much. And so you don't want to alienate people in your message. So that's the power of the segmenting, is that the people that are interested in gardening, I'm going to send them messages about gardening. The people that are interested in hearing from me about segmenting their CRM, they're going to hear from me about that.
Right.
And the same goes for in the industry. Like for you, Nikki, what you're saying is like the people that want to hear from you about quarterly market stats,
That's
they only
it.
want to hear
That's all they want
quarterly.
to hear. They only want to hear quarterly. I have some people who will say things like, well, I'm also interested in what's happening in other markets, or they might be really interested in some fun things that I have seen around in the city.
Yeah.
And or where I'm eating or the crazy walks that I go on. And everybody can tell me what it is that they're most interested in. And I can also, have like a constant sort of redirect. I always try to have a great, call to action at the end.
Yes.
And the call to action is different if it's my email that's primarily focused for investors versus my email that's primarily for buyers, or the email that's primarily for sellers. Or I also have a specific email that goes to my referral partners.
Yeah.
So that way it gives everybody information in the way that they want to hear it at the time they want to hear it, but not everybody needs to hear everything.
Right.
Sometimes I scan through my email. We all get way too many emails, and I scan and I go through and I think to myself, I didn't sign up to be on this list. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is that you are sending me an email asking, if I want to buy or sell in New York, that I should reach out to you. And I'm like, but that doesn't make any sense because I am in this market and that's what I do. And there's a handful of people that I've known for a really long time, and we are on each other's mailing lists. But overall, sending the same thing to everyone is just a recipe for madness and low open rates and unsubscribes, because I'm going to open it up and I'm going to say everything here doesn't really apply.
Yeah. And that's the thing is you don't want to alienate somebody and be like, why is she sending me a message about gardening? I'm not interested. Delete this message, block her, and and so you don't want that to happen, or unsubscribe. You don't want those unsubscribes. You want to
No,
continue the relationship.
sometimes, we have different channels where you communicate differently. Whether, we have our CRM and we have our email marketing systems. You have your social profiles. You might have your Facebook profile. You might have your LinkedIn. You might have your Instagram, your Twitter, your Threads, well, X, whatever it's called. And I also sometimes will say to people, if you're interested in more like of the moment, whatever is on my mind, here are some other places where you can in fact get that.
Yeah.
But this is not the overall
Yeah.
place. And I think that is really, and it feels so overwhelming. And I was super overwhelmed when I first started using a CRM. And what I have found is setting aside time to organize it at the beginning, but even just like once a year, or taking it in bits and bobs,
Or once a month. I do once a month.
Once a month.
Just not too much time.
You do once a month, but like so I tend to do like a big focus on it once a year, because it also in theory also leads up to when I would be sending out like holiday cards and things like that. And it's a perfect touch point, but still figure out what that pattern is for you and just stay with it. And if you're spending enough time working and updating things in your CRM and making notes, like I like to go in and make notes after phone calls, because again, I sometimes, I have post-it notes everywhere. It becomes second nature, and you go, oh, wait, I was talking to so-and-so, and so-and-so has just, we've just closed on this, and now they're living here, so they just bought something, but now I'm renting out. So it puts you in the moment of, you can always on the fly be adjusting
For sure.
the category, so it's less overwhelming. I think it's just making it a part of your practice.
Well, and I know,
and
like, I
setting
know
aside time to
Nikki,
do it.
yeah. And I know Nikki, you're pretty big on social media. You post, on Instagram and Facebook and all the things. And I think like even if you were to get a message like someone saying like, "Oh, hey Nikki," someone from your network that's coming in from Arizona and they're like, "Oh, Nikki, I'm gonna be in New York City. Where do you recommend that I go? I really want to go to some fabulous restaurants. Tell me about what's
Yeah.
in the neighborhood." Now you can take that and even say like, "Oh, okay, well, put that into your CRM, like, okay, she's really into restaurants, or he's really into this or that." You can take a lot of these cues from conversations that you're having on or offline. It doesn't always have to be just like a phone conversation or a text where you're getting
Absolutely.
those things like someone's posting about moving jobs or moving cities or whatever, changing careers. That's something again to take that. And that's why I do it once a month, because then I'm like, okay, because sometimes I make a
Yeah, and
like
I think that if you're as you're actively in the process of expanding and building your list, which we should all constantly be in that
yeah,
process, I think it naturally will happen that you'll go in, and you will tweak and edit, and move things around. And that's actually where it becomes so great to be connecting your lead sources and your landing pages into your CRM, because already one part of that categorization is done.
yeah,
Where like when I did that a couple of years ago, I did a street fair in my neighborhood, and you guys built me like a little landing page. So it was great because now I know I can still go in and I can say, those are all the people that I met at the street fair. And so when I message the people that I met at the street fair, I might be talking more about stuff that's going on in our neighborhood that is super interesting. There may be things that I know about restaurants or buildings or construction where I can share and say, hey, here's something that's going up. So an email topic that leads may want to hear first if they're
they want to buy.
in my case. So it also depends on how the lead came to me and how much I know. But I always like to get on a phone call or a Zoom call and say, let's have an initial buyer consultation. Give me 15, 30 minutes. I want to learn about who you are, what you're looking for, where you are in the process, because I think that the faster you make a connection, that sometimes it's a little harder to do via email until you actually get on a call, the more likely you are to start to build that trusted advisor relationship. And I will always say to people, look, I will answer whatever it is that they've asked and say, when do you have a couple of minutes to hop on a quick call in the next couple of days? And, let them tell me, or I can say, I have some time in the mornings over the next couple of days, would love to connect so that we can just quickly and efficiently get a sense of who you are, what you're looking for, and I can give you like a 3-minute overview on the market, and we can come up with a plan. And I think that most people have been pretty receptive to that. I think the speed of responding, and honestly, once you find something that kind of works, language that works, keep it on your phone as something you can copy, paste, and tweak. Um,
You can put it in your content
yeah,
library too. And so a couple of things.
that's
So
right.
I'm gonna share my screen because there's a couple of things. Like occasionally, just like everybody else, right? There's occasionally sometimes where I'm going to write the same message over and over again. That just happens. That's just part of the nature of and so if I find myself like, ooh, I'm probably going to use this several times, I put it in my content library. So you can come in here and you can just add some content. So you can come in here and just start writing out your message and putting in all the things that you need to put in and the images and the call to actions and include a video and your call to action button and whatnot, and hyperlink things. And then you save this. You could use our AI writing assistant as well, our chat GPT, to also help you kind of tweak some of the language. But
I love using things to using ChatGPT to tweak language. I
yeah,
will ask it to tell me make this more appealing and engaging to a buyer
yeah.
or a seller. And I think that the more specific you are with like the ChatGPT, really refines the output that you
Oh,
get.
for sure. Most definitely. And just always, and you know, I think going back to Shahira's question of, you know, what are some examples of what people might want to hear first from you? I think sending something like that initial, and Nikki, you said it too, that speed to lead. So if you're using the automation, so if it's coming in from a landing page, having a video, and Nikki, I know you do a ton of videos. So maybe you can encourage other people to do videos. Doing a quick video that's like 30 seconds long, introducing yourself goes such a long way.
And you guys are integrated with BombBomb,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So like a great thing is create a couple of like basic videos that say who you are, introduce yourself, things that you can quickly send, because I do believe that the connection from the sound of a voice or even watching a video, looking at someone
Yeah.
feels very different than reading text on a screen. And you know that always requires that I have to just sort of like look and
Right.
then
Yeah.
you know expand the text
Yeah.
versus listening. And I think you know if you have we as agents who are experts in our markets, you should really have a quick, succinct comment that you can share on the market. And if it's, you know, right now, this is an interesting market where buyers may have leverage because A, B, and C. Let's hop on a call to discuss. Like
Yeah.
something quick and simple, that short and succinct, that reestablishes that you are the expert, but also makes people want to call and talk to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a key thing. I mean, not many people want to read. They're not going to want to read, especially text and email. Like if I see a long email, I'm like, oh Lordy, I'm going to unread that one for right now because I'm going to need some patience and like a cup of coffee. So I like, you know,
Or a
just to
glass
be
of wine.
right, or a glass of wine, just like concise, just be simple, straight to the point, like give me your bottom line. So I think that's a really good thing to have in your like library of content. And just even like I did this not too long ago, I was sending out just like a personal like message to a few people, and I'm like, ooh, I got to do these as like one-off text messages. And so I just did, you know, and they were pretty much the same thing, a couple of different pleasantries in the beginning, but the body of the text was going to be the same. And so what I did is I used a keyboard shortcut on my iPhone. So I'm pretty sure Android phones have it, but I'm just like, all I had to do was type in 3 letters and it like filled out like this, like 3 sentences for me. So like using
Keyboard shortcuts are great.
yeah, keyboard shortcuts are any kind of shortcut. And that's what a lot of the things like even having people put in your audience automatically through your sources, that's a shortcut. Having these auto responses, that's a shortcut. Saving content into your library of content within the CRM, that's a shortcut for you that will save you so much time in the long run.
It's
It's just,
in the long run, like
yeah,
one of the things that that I have to go in and do is on my website, there is a link to the quarterly market report. So I can create sort of a standard auto response that says, you know, oh, you know, thank you so and so for if you're interested in buying and selling, here's our most recent quarterly report. Let's set up a time to chat.
right.
You know, and simple because that's evergreen. And I think that that's really where these shortcuts are super brilliant, where you can set something up once and reuse it over and over and over again.
Absolutely. And so I need my glasses to read the name because there's too many. Is it a J? Giant, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. I'm sorry if I mispronounced it, but is asking like, how do you send a bulk text message to a big group of people? And so what you would simply do is find the audience, right? Find the right category. So if I go in here and I say, I'm going to find, I'm going to do, I know in this one, I think I have people in VIP, hopefully. So then I would come in here and say, I'm going to select all these people and I'm going to go to my actions and I'm going to say, send a text message. It even tells me like, hey, out of the 7 people, 2 of them don't have a phone number. That's cool. And so now I can say hi and then put in the first name, and then go ahead and put in, whatever I want to do, put in my message. I just, sort of right when I do these example texts, I always like, I always do it the same way. I always say like, hi, first name. You don't have to do it that way. You can just start talking and saying like, wanted you to see this, and I'm going to pretend like I'm typing real things here. And then wanted to make sure that you see this first name, right? You don't have to put the first name in like right after the word hi. It's like, I want to make sure that that's clear to everybody. Like you could put the placeholder wherever you feel like is necessary in the body of your text, and then go ahead and send this out. You can include videos from like Dub or BombBomb, or videos or images that you've saved to Wise Agent, but you can also do, so if you have like a, thank you for attending the open house. So if I want to do, send somebody, everyone that came to my open house, I want to send them a quick message. I can save all of that. Now, every single time I have some after an open house, I can send this message. I can go ahead then and say, ooh, I maybe want to include the flyer from that particular property. So then they know which open house they were at. And hopefully I have one in here saved. I should, here's one. So then I can just come in here and say like, okay, well, here's that flyer. And so now this can go out to everyone. And then it's kind of thanking them. It's giving them my contact information. I can put in my signature in here. I could do all those things. And it includes the flyer of the open house they were at, where now they have everything. Like there's no reason for them to not contact me if they're interested. And I'm sending them something that they're, like they were hopefully expecting it, or hopefully they weren't expecting it, but appreciating it, that I was able to follow through with them after they visited the open house. So those are all the things, and it's really, really simple to do. And so even if you don't subscribe to BombBomb, you don't have to, or to Dub. They are partners of ours and they do video messaging really well. You can just record a video from your phone or your, desktop if you've got a webcam, and you can just upload that. Like that would be the video that you use. It just has to be in text. It has to be 40 seconds long. That's the only caveat. In an email, I would say if you don't want to subscribe to something, you could use YouTube. That's absolutely free.
Yeah.
Get a Gmail account. It's free. Upload it. And it's always nice to have a YouTube channel where that, again, you're talking about evergreen, like, and you're talking about like, hey, here's New York City and here's the walks that I take and here's all the things that I do. And now you can rank up a lot higher because you're just like putting your daily walk with your dog and you're just doing the things. And like, Nikki has some great videos on social. I love following her on, like holidays.
It's mostly
Right?
everybody just likes to follow the dog, but like,
Right. Yeah.
it's figuring out ways to, as you're creating content for different channels and different verticals, how to use that in other parts of your marketing.
Yeah.
Whether it's, hey, do you love the holidays in New York City? Follow me, follow me on Instagram, because every day during the holidays, I'm going to post a different New York City, shot. If I sent someone every day an email with a photo of New York City in the holidays, I would not want to receive that. But people can opt in to go and look and see, and they know that during the holidays, that's what they'll get. And I think that there are so many tools that are available today that can make life a little simpler. It feels really overwhelming. And I get that as an agent, like no one wants to feel overwhelmed, but just pick the two or three things that you're going to focus on
Yeah.
and just work with that. And working your database is essentially, it is your book of business. Like everybody is trying to chase 10,000 other things, and there's probably dozens of deals in your current contacts.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
that's part of why sometimes you'll reach out to someone and they'll tell you that they bought something with someone else because maybe you fell off of the face of the earth and you didn't talk to them for, you know, a year, 2 years, 7 years. And if you find more ways that you can stay in touch with content that's very specific to what they want, and again, just ask them. Imagine what would happen if you took time and you took like 3 minutes and said, hey, you guys, I am updating my address book and I just want to make sure that you still want to hear from me and tell me what you want to hear.
Yeah.
People will literally tell you.
And I think that's a great landing page, even like, hey, you can set up a landing
Yes.
page to say, we have one that's like getting to know you, which I love too, because it does a couple of things. Like I get a great deal of questions that I get a lot of is, how do I fill in some of the gaps for the contacts that I already have? Like I have a lot of people's like names and then like a phone number or a name and an email, but I don't have an address or I don't have a phone number. I'm missing this. Well, a landing page can help you fill in some of those gaps, but then add to it what Nikki is saying, like, hey, would you like to receive my monthly newsletter? Would you like to receive updates on what's happening in your market? Would you like to, would you like to see what's happening around our town? Like, do you want to know what's happening in this area that I serve? I think that's I might have Sarah make a landing page for that.
No, and also, I mean, there's nothing that says, ask people what they like to do for fun.
Yeah, your
Because
interest.
you may discover that they have interests that also you have, and that could be another connection point.
Yeah. So there's a
Like,
question here from Eves that's asking, and I love these, like, okay, if she's got 5,000 contacts, how long will that take to tag everyone from scratch and get them in categories? So I'm going to say this. There's no real way of telling because you've got 5,000 contacts. I don't know these people. Hopefully you know who they are. I would say grab your favorite beverage, maybe 1 or 2 bottles, wine, Pepsi, whatever your thing is, whatever your jam is. And I would say go through and this is how I have done it. Where, and this account doesn't have, I think this account only has like a couple of 100 people in it. So it's not, very large, but I would just start through like, look to see what you currently have. Like if you have, and if they're already in Wise Agent, you could just come into your categories and just say like, okay, do I just have like nothing in here? Or do I have like 2 categories, one that has 2,000 people and the other has another 3,000 people. And then I would just focus on doing it that way. But you can come in here and say like, okay, these buyers, there's 98 of them. I can click on this and say like, okay, well, what makes her, but actually she's no longer a buyer. I actually just sold her this house. And same with Dwight and same with this person. And so now I can just come in here and say like, remove contacts from category, and I'm going to remove them from being in a buyer. And then they still say selected, and then I'm going to add them to a category, and maybe I'm going to put them in, I don't know. I don't know, something else has home sale anniversary. I don't know, some other category, maybe seller or whatever, past clients, whatever it might
but
be.
I agree. I mean, there's so many
You can
things,
go in
and
there and do it that way, but realistically, I would say it could take you, a few hours depending on how, like if you just know, like I know Bill Risser. Okay. So I know exactly, I know Camilla. Some of these people are fictional people. So if I'm like, I know these people, I know who they are and what they mean to me, that I can do that pretty quickly. So it all depends on how well you know those 5,000. So just kind of,
And I would probably say that think of the time that sometimes, you'll spend relaxing, like, watching Netflix or something.
yeah,
Like when I need to do things like this, I will typically do them when I'm doing something else that I maybe just kind of want to relax, and
reminding
I can spend, 30 minutes and then take a break and go walk with the dog, or whatever it is. And I try to break it up into small segments, and I know how long I can stare at a screen before I need a break. So I tend to do most of my work in that way. Where if I know that after like 90 minutes or so, I'm going to need to get up and do something, and especially if I'm dealing with like my CRM, I may say, okay, you know what? I'm going to give myself the next hour, and then I'm going to get up and go for a walk, and then I'll come back. And I'll tend to do it like while I'm watching Netflix or something, or Bridgerton
yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah. For me, I love a quiet Saturday morning. My kids are teenagers, the ones that are at home still. So they sleep in late. My husband kind of sometimes does his own thing. He's in the garage doing his thing. And I'm like sitting with a good cup of coffee, and I'm just going through, and I
Yeah.
try not to do anything that's going to be too overwhelming. So I usually select a letter. So I'll go through and I'm like, okay, sort by last name. And I'm like, I'm going to start,
Yes.
like I think right now I'm like at S's or T's. I think I'm at T's. So then I'm like, okay. And I just go through the letters because I got quite a few people in my database. And so I'm like, I can't do it by category because it's all over the place with categories. But if I do it by letter, it feels a little less overwhelming for me.
And I think by letter feels a little less overwhelming because it's also, there's, I mean, there's only 26 letters in the English alphabet. So that's really, whereas if I tried to do by categories, I would be very overwhelmed very quickly because
Yeah,
I
me too.
have way too many categories.
Yeah.
Way too many categories, and then I would sort of get stuck in the rabbit hole. Whereas I can say, okay, you know what? Today I'm going to work, and I often tend to work in reverse because for some reason I have fewer people with like Z last names. So sometimes it's my way of getting myself like super energized really quickly because I can sometimes tackle 3 letters.
Right.
Whereas I have some letters and it's just like the pages go on forever. I'm like, why does everybody have the same starting letter for their last name?
Same. And I have to deal with two languages because I've got a lot of people with a Greek name in there, so I
Oh
get
no,
them.
I'm not. That's why I said like the English language, because then if I
Yeah.
think about Spanish and French and Portuguese and Russian,
Yeah.
I could be going forever. So I try to focus just one thing at a time, and I try to take it
Yeah.
in small, manageable chunks.
Yeah. Because especially like if it's something that you're like, gosh, this is a little bit of a chore, then you have to do it in those small little bites. So then it doesn't feel like this really sucks and I don't ever want to do this again. And then you never go back to it. So for me, that's what I do. I like doing letters and, and that's why I
I
do
like
it.
doing letters.
I think,
Sometimes I've done it. Um, Believe it or not, sometimes when I've been on planes and I have internet access, sometimes I will do this.
that's the best time to do it.
Sometimes I can't, sometimes I can't sleep and I wake up in the middle of the night. I'm like, well, I should do something. And sometimes like I just find those weird little pockets where I don't have enough sort of, you know,
Bandwidth.
I don't have the overwhelming brain power, the bandwidth to do some things, but things like this I can do at really random pockets.
Yeah. And the thing is the purpose of it is just to keep up with it. Once you have it kind of started, then you can spend less time in it. It's unless
Yeah.
you're like importing gobs and gobs of sheets of spreadsheets in it. I would say like everything,
Yeah.
if you're hosting open houses, if you're hosting parties, or you're doing lunch and learns, maybe with like, you're partnering up with a lender or a title rep or whatever it is, I would say use the landing pages so then those get automatically sourced and tagged, and then you just go
Yeah.
back and you can say, okay, from this open house, let me go through and like, oh, I remember that one couple, Bob and Susie, and then you can go in there and like they talked about this, that, and the other. and it becomes
And
a
I think the
little
landing
less
pages
overwhelming.
are really key because I find that less overwhelming. So that way, what I find personally overwhelming is the other people that I meet that I can't just hand people, you know, a landing page if I've met them, you know, at a coffee shop. So at least by using these tools for my open houses or my events or when I'm teaching, that comes in and that's categorized. And that way, when I meet someone random on a plane or at an open house, um,
Yeah.
oh, that's an interesting
I'm gonna,
question,
I know,
Rex.
I'm gonna answer Rex's question. So he says, if you have a buyer that has purchased 5 investment properties and you want to email a home bot valuation email monthly, do you set up 5 different contacts for this buyer for the 5 different property addresses, or can you accomplish this with a single contact with 5 different? So I'm gonna tell you this, in any kind of, in the world of CRM, duplicate data is not good. It's just not good. So I'm gonna just go to Michael Phelps. He's my contact in here that I always have a lot of stuff on.
I
So
love that you have Michael
I
Phelps. It
know,
always cracks me
you
up.
know, I'm a huge fan of his. I love him. So if he's ever watching. But anyways, so what I would do, Rex, is I would just have one contact, and I would have all your like important dates. I would have them all in here. So I would just add, like, you know, I don't know, like he bought his Scottsdale home because he does live here, you know, on January 2nd. And then he bought, you know, his Miami home, because I'm assuming he lives in he goes to Miami too, you know, so like he, you know, he has all of these things. So now I can come in here and put all of the things and all of his dates in here, and then also put in his addresses, right? So then I can put in here, you know, here's his Miami home or whatever. I can just, you know, make that as that address type so that I know that this is his property in Miami. I don't know any addresses in Miami, so I'm going to just pretend like it's this. And then I can save that. And now I can see all of his addresses in here. Okay. So that's how I would do that. So then it doesn't get, you don't want to have duplicates. That's the last thing that you want. And I think I saw a different question about duplicates and removing of duplicates in here earlier. We do have a duplicate search. So I would say, oh, I stopped sharing my screen. That would be the other thing that I would kind of want you guys to see today would be how to search for duplicates. And that would be from your contact list and just going to your search group. And so we have 2 different duplicate types. So like a duplicate by email would be like, you know, Nikki also goes by her full name, which is Nicole. So if I'm like looking for somebody like Nikki that goes by Nikki and Nicole, but it's always Nikki at Gmail, let's just say. So then I can find her, and I don't know if I do. Okay, Mike, you know, so I have a Mike and a Michael, right? And they're duplicates. So I would just merge these 2 people because it's the same exact person, it's the same email address, but it's a different name. So then I would just go in here and just say merge contacts. And then I can, you know, select in here like, well, use this one and, you know, use this, or I can say everything from this is the right way of doing it, or everything here, and then just merge it. Okay. I'm not going to merge it because I need that for demos. But then I can also find duplicates, duplicates by name, which would be if I have people in here with, you know, 2 like Audrey Hepburns. So then this is the same exact person, different phone numbers, different email addresses. So now I can merge these people. Okay, so that's how you would do that. And then, you know, if you're just starting out and you've not set anything up, you're waiting for your onboarding session, or you're preparing for your onboarding session, you have all your contacts in Google and Gmail, because I think that's what I had seen is somebody had said, okay, I'm getting ready to use my Google Sync. Then make sure you dedupe and remove all the duplicates from your Google account before you sync everything over. So cleaning it up beforehand is always is very highly recommended. So, okay. Well, I don't know if there seems to be a few more questions in here. I know we're running low on time though. Can Wise Agent identify the do not call phone numbers when we send text out? So, do not call is for phone calls. Texting is texting. So those do not have the same relationship. Same with like emailing. I will say this, you should be emailing and calling and texting people that you actually know and have met from some place. That's why the automation, like especially from the portals, is really important to have that automation. So you send their contact information out. And then you give them a reason why to answer you back. So you ask a question like, hey, thanks for sending in your inquiry. Do you have 5 minutes to talk right now? Or is there a good time for you to talk later on today? And you ask that question and you wait for their response. So when they respond to you, then the do not call registry thing is no longer in play because they're engaging with you. Okay, I struggle with the whole spouse with the contacts. I need to create a separate contact if I want to interact with the spouse. So this is a personal preference. What I personally do is I have every contact as their own. So I have, Sarah as a contact, and then I have Alex's name in as the spouse, but then I also will have Alex as a new contact with all of his contact information. So that's how I would do that. That's how I personally do it. So then when Sarah calls, I see Alex's name there and I remember that's her spouse. But if he were to call me, then his name shows up on my phone. So it's a personal preference on how you want to do that. Everyone's different. So I like separating it out. But that is all the time that we have. I know, Nikki, you have to run. You've got some stuff going on today. I so appreciate you being on, Nikki. Thank you.
No, I always love doing this, and I love because it also makes me think about things a little bit differently, and thinking of new things that I can tweak. And wait, what does this say?
If you have an
Something
iPhone, do
if
not
you
put spouse's contact info in name only. Otherwise, you'll have big problems. Huh, I have an iPhone. I'm not sure why you're saying that, Mark, but
yeah, I mean, I keep it separate. I like having the distinct contacts, and sometimes where it says like I will put it in a different field so that I know it's like, oh, this is Jane, she's John's wife, and I have it in the contact, but I have it separate.
yeah,
Just makes my life a little easier.
yeah. I just like sometimes I forget, so I hate searching for names. But I appreciate everyone being on. I'm gonna be back on February 8th. I'm not sure if that's next week or not. I think it's next week. So Sam from Roomvu and I are going to be on. We're going to be talking about hyper local social content strategies for your sphere of influence. I think you know Sam, right, Nikki? From Roomvu. I'm not sure if I introduced you to him last week, but
Sure. I'm not sure.
But anyway, so we're going to be talking about that hyper local social content. So I'll be back next week. If you guys, I know Nick, I know you know him, so
Yeah.
please join.
I will register and tune in.
Yes, yes. I don't know how I missed that, Nikki. Sorry. We must have been separated that night. But anyways, so
or I was in my office working, which also
I know
happened
you
a lot
were
last week.
last week. All right, guys. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you all next week. Thanks so much, Nikki and Hudson. Bye, Hudson. All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks so much.